Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pod Stallions. I am Brian, and with me to my left is Jason.
Hello, everyone.
And we drive around the country solving mysteries and righting wrongs. Is that what we do?
If you said righting ROMs, R-O-M, the action figure, then that's definitely true.
Yeah.
Because
we fix Parker Brothers ROM
going
action.
around the country,
Yes.
fixing every piece of ROM that I can find to.
Although, I shouldn't take the credit because you're the one that has the soldering iron, and
I actually have a pocket soldering iron,
right,
which is very handy.
Yeah, okay, but you're not allowed to go near a school.
No, don't be silly. It's too dangerous. Too dangerous. Well, welcome. I hope you've missed us. And that kind of witty.
I've missed us.
I have.
Yeah.
November was a little hectic for both of us.
November actually just disappeared.
Brian went through a wormhole.
Well, Brian was working 14-hour days on a book, and it was December. And yeah, how did that happen?
And I was proofing it, so that's
true. You
that's an
you
8 hour.
Did actually proof it, and And I was going to make a Seinfeld joke about how you had sex with the cleaning lady while you were proofing it, but I don't know how many people watch Seinfeld.
Not for this book, but the previous one I did. Yeah.
It's true.
And then tracking down world leaders to maybe write the intro, and that's been not as easy as I thought it would be, to be honest.
Yeah, Leonard Brezhnev not returning my emails.
He's prickly.
Mm-hmm.
He's prickly.
Also.
So Brian came up with a great topic for this episode, and I couldn't be happier about it because he's one of my heroes. Brian, would you like to tell the folks what we're doing today?
Marjoe Gortner.
Finally.
No,
sitting over here for 6 years waiting for this.
I don't know why I do that shit because people who click on this know the topic, so there's absolutely no joke value to that whatsoever. But
you know what? Actually, I'm glad you said that because the joke is you could keep me in suspense, but I know the answer too. But I think what we should do 1 month, or if we do it a couple times a month or whatever we do, is do like a lightning type thing where I don't know, you get to choose, and then you come to the table, and it is a surprise to me, or maybe the heading is just surprise. Give it a listen. Don't tell me what it is, and we'll do a kind of a grab bag.
Hodgepodge.
A hodgepodge. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, no, I could do that. Yeah, you know what? Let's do that. Let's let our next episode, even if it's a mini-sode, we each write 2 topics on an index card.
Yeah.
And they can be inane. And we have to talk about them. Let's do that.
Because let's be honest.
And I expect you to have index cards.
Let's be honest. I mean, that's half the joke of doing this is like the way we sort of get sidetracked and ramble and so on. Like, we could take 2 names of just about anybody in pop culture and find a way to talk for 20 to 60 minutes.
Can I please, before we get into the subject, because I know this will irritate the person, but I gotta, oh, here it is. I got this love letter on YouTube that I meant to send you, but let's do it on the show.
All right.
Hey, next time you guys do a podcast, discuss the actual topic at hand from the get-go, not off-topic HBO movies. Thanks. But the thanks is, it's got a couple exclamation marks. And it's like, that triggers like that. You don't get us, man.
Is that real?
That's 100% real,
okay.
Yes.
Can I just say, not only is that the best piece of fan mail we've ever gotten, it's really the quote for the poster of the movie.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
It really like when they tell whatever famous story, but in the telling of it, they go backwards and then have the little quotes of like worst film ever. It says Vincent Canby of the
Yeah.
We could use that quote and be like, yeah, that's the perfect quote because that's really what the show is.
I really wanted to respond with no, I'm not going to do that, but I just didn't.
You should have responded with, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah,
I can't stay
on
top.
I told. Okay, let's do this. Have we even talked about the topic yet?
Brian, you're getting off topic. For God's sake!
Oh my stars! That's probably a new record. Our topic is
get to the point.
Bill Murray. Bill Murray was a guy I wanted to grow up to be. And especially based on his performances in movies like Caddyshack and Meatballs. And when I turned 20, I realized, this is a really achievable, attainable goal, and maybe I should reassess things. But I thought it was a really interesting thing to talk about because I was recently interviewed for a bunch of TV and movie projects, documentaries, that sort of thing. And the film crew that came was delightful. And while they weren't, we were in the same age, I wouldn't call them young men or anything, but the guy was a couple of years younger than me, and he was talking about how he was trying to do something with Bill Murray. And it was very obvious that kids of the 80s really idolized Bill Murray.
Oh yeah,
and
I think there's something really fascinating that's happened with him too. Like, I don't mean to you could do this in a roundabout way, but we've talked about this many times. Where so much of the stuff that we talk about, the formative stuff, of a certain age, the things that we grew up with and loved, and yes, we love things that happened before we were born, and when we were too young to remember, etc. But the bulk of this stuff is in sort of our youth, okay? But even musically, there's a reason we really got lucky with when we were around and the formative stuff that we got, because there's a reason so much of it endures the way it does, where there's not as much iconic stuff from the last 20 years. I think someone would say the Harry Potter films or Lord of the Rings or whatever. But okay, what else? Like all the stuff that we kind of experienced is still an ongoing concern today. And when you go
a little film called A Lucky Number 11. Thank you very much.
Yeah, let me tell you, the corner of Hot Topic that has the Lucky Number 11 merch is always wiped clean. But that's actually Hot Topic is a good example, because you go in there, and this has to do with the music thing that we were looking into for Biff Bang Pow, but you go into like a Hot Topic store, and 90% of the stuff in there did not kick off in the lifetime of the average age of the person that's in there buying it.
Yeah.
Bowie and Beetlejuice and, Ghostbusters and whatever. So Murray has become this iconic, not, in a different way than like Aykroyd or any of the, I think he's the best thing that ever came off of SNL. I know that's probably sacrilege to certain people about Eddie Murphy and other incredibly talented people, but, I'm
a Phil Hartman devotee.
Phil Hartman was brilliant. The thing about Phil Hartman was he was so good at doing characters. He was so good at all the character and impression stuff that he did, that's why it was so hard to find a project for him.
I agree. But I really don't want to upset the ardent Chris Kattan fan base out there.
Do you know what? Quoting your wife again. That is someone's favorite SNL.
Oh yeah.
That is someone's favorite. But anyway, Murray has what he did, which I think is, we can talk about all the things we loved about him, and when we first knew who he was and so on. But he really kind of did something different, after Ghostbusters, when he did the Razor's Edge and then Ghostbusters and, sort of taking time off until he did Scrooged and so on and so forth, living in Paris. He just seemed to kind of buck so much of the system at a very early age for him that, of course, now everybody knows that he doesn't have a manager and he doesn't have an agent and he just, has an answering service or whatever it is. He really is this Zen master in another universe it's found this other layer of being an icon that's separate and different even from the stuff he was doing in the 70s and 80s that was already so iconic, which is kind of fascinating. But before we get to all that, do you remember the first time you saw him perform or something you saw him in, or what was because you're in Canada and I don't know when you got.
Yeah, I would have to say, and it's hard to, the memory cheats, but it was probably Meatballs, because that was considered Canadian content and that got on television fairly quickly. That was definitely the one that made the impression on me, and that is, I don't know if you've watched that recently. I actually just did.
I watched it about 10 years ago. It's been a while. It is what it is, but it holds up for what it is. It's not Porky's, and it's not.
It's kind of funny. For me, it's a little bit of a memory lane thing too, because a lot of the people in that film are Canadian actors that you never saw again, but I saw in television commercials and like one of those things where they had a longer life, and
the Nemesis, do we have the glasses with somebody, right? Didn't he kind of do a lot of stuff?
The Nemesis.
The guy that was done. He always got picked. The nerdy guy.
I know that the chubby guy who's like Spaz's friend in that film, he really got around. He was in a ton of commercials. Mm-hmm. He passed away, actually. The camp counselor, Morty, I have a personal relationship with. He's passed away, but it was a Canadian actor by the name of Harvey Atkin. He was on shows like, he was on The New Avengers. He was on Cagney and Lacey. And he was also an owner of a car wash that was across the street from where I worked. And he was not that nice. He was not a nice dude.
He went from Meatballs to owning a car wash.
Mm-hmm. No, actually, he did a ton of voice work. He was like on Sam and Max, and I think he was actually doing the Mario Brothers cartoon at some time.
So wait, did you see Meatballs when it came out?
No, I didn't see it in the theater. Obviously, I saw it on like CTV, probably when I was 10 or 11.
I was trying to think of when I saw it, and I think I might have gone to the movies to see it at the movies. Because it was 79, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
79? Yeah.
I probably saw it in 80 or 81, so I would have been 10.
It sounds made up or cliche, but obviously my first exposure to him was SNL. And you think about it now, I don't know if 7-year-olds are watching or staying up to
only if your brother's name is Gino.
When I talk to people I know now that have little kids or whatever, like these kids are in bed on a Saturday by 8:30 or something. I was up watching Monty Python and the Holy Grail at like midnight on public television on Channel 2, or SNL on Saturday nights, which would have been Minnesota St. Paul time would have been like 11 p.m. I think, or something on a Saturday night. I was staying up to watch SNL. I don't know who was looking after me, but I seemed to do okay. But I knew him from that. And then, but the thing that always sticks in my mind as like this formative thing that I think of him is Nick the Lounge Singer on SNL.
Yeah, I didn't catch that till reruns. Especially
the Star Wars episode when he started doing the Star Wars song. And it was just this this moment of things, I mean, just going, what is he doing? You know, just as a little kid, not getting all the shtick of who Nick was supposed to be, but just how funny he was doing these ridiculous songs and stuff. That is probably the thing that I would point to and go, that's when I knew who Bill Murray was that, and the fact that one of them at least they were doing it from, you know, Breezy Point Resort is what they said. And that was a place that we'd go for vacations. It's Breezy Point. And I think it was because Franken and Davis wrote those bits, a lot of those bits.
They're Minnesota guys, right?
Minnesota guys, yeah. So that was like another mind-blowing kind of moment. But I think I saw Meatballs in the theater with my then buddy Mark Bukowski down the street, who went to see everything.
See, when I finally was old enough to see Saturday Night Live, so probably like 10, it was that I remember, you know, I'd heard of Saturday Night Live. I was a huge SCTV fan because that played at decent hours, and I was excited to watch Saturday Night Live. And it was the Jean de Bont era, so like that disastrous season with Gilbert Gottfried and
Denny Dillon and
Charles Rocket, and I can honestly remember going, like being 10 years old, going, what's so good about this? Like, you know, I'm up late and that's awesome, but this is terrible. And I actually rewatched those. Comedy Central played them like 30 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And I actually rewatched them, and they are just awful. Terrible. Like it's just not good.
I feel like, because I did revisit some of them a while ago.
Yeah.
Little sketches, and it felt like it was almost trying to, and I say this
get fired.
Well, I'm saying this like in the loosest way possible, like not really the punk ethic, but like it almost felt like it was going, we know that you loved all this other stuff. That's not what the show is. This is what the show is now. We're like purposely going to be so annoying or so nothing with these sketches that it almost felt like it was trying to, you know, deconstruct, or, I mean, I'm giving it more credit, but it's so for any sketch show, it's bad. But I mean, the fact that it was carrying the torch for this thing that had become an institution, and there's no.
And can I say something controversial?
Yes.
I find the early Saturday Night Live way over romanticized.
Oh, listen, you're talking to a kid. I was the kid, you know, hanging out with his friends or, you know, in the neighborhood or whatever, and they'd be redoing the SNL stuff or talking, and I'd be the kid going, yeah, it's not as good as Monty Python's Flying Circus.
Yeah, okay, good.
And they go, what, wait, Monty, what the who? It's Monty Python's Flying Circus. You guys don't know that show? Yeah, it's on Channel 2. It's like 10 o'clock on Friday nights. Yeah, it's really good. It's not as good as any of that stuff.
I was the SCTV kid. So,
I was the guy defending Wings over Kiss on the playground. Going,
oh, okay. I thought you meant the 1990s sitcom.
It's really underrated. You don't get it right now, but you'll get it soon. Kiss is all just kind of, yeah, they're fine, but, you know, but SNL was, and that's
you sound like a young George Plimpton.
People forget. I wore a suit when I was like 8 or 9. Brought a chair
I just picture you with an espresso.
And I brought a chair everywhere I went and sat down with the other kids that were sitting around and like, tell me what you thought about the SNL. What was so great about it the other night? But it's funny you say that, because this is the thing about SNL, and I realize we're getting way off topic here because we're supposed to be talking about.
Are we? Because we're talking about SNL.
But it is over romanticized, because here's the thing. And to me, it's like comparisons that people make, you know, this band versus this, whatever. People always go, you know, Monty Python, SNL, SCTV, etc. Well, SCTV to me is, I mean, Python to me is the Beatles, and then SCTV is right next to it. You know what I mean? SNL is so distant but there was nothing else to really compare, you know, in the mix. Those early shows were like 90 minutes, and what people romanticize are the iconic moments or the iconic characters that sort of became runners, not the way they were beaten to death, by the time of the 80s runs, where they would just get a character and a catchphrase and just constant. But from beginning to end, to sit and watch some of those shows, I mean, the audience is, deathly silent through much of those shows.
Yeah.
So it's just that it's those moments as opposed to something like
I think everything, a friend of mine, John Marshall, who's written some books, and he actually was in Toy Ventures. He had this point about vintage Batman comics ages ago, where he's like, he posted this long rant. It was funny as hell. He's like, I bought this, 70s run of Batman comics. And he's like, oh my God, have you people ever read these? You remember the stories that are amazing. Right. And you've forgotten the filler. Right. And, if I asked you to pick out, and I'm paraphrasing here because it's been a long time since I read this rant. If I asked you to pick out the best parts, you'd name the same stuff I would after just freshly reading this. You wouldn't remember the boring story about the Penguin and and I think it's, and I hate to quote this guy, but going to Doctor Who and John Nathan Turner, the memory cheats.
Oh my God, does it ever?
And we over romanticize the things that were great.
But I mean, we also, it's funny because you bring that up, because I did what was I doing that I suddenly put on, I think I had the DVD set and I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put on Time Flight. I'm going to watch Time Flight because I don't think I've seen it since it aired. Okay.
For those that aren't into Doctor Who, Time Flight is a terrible episode.
It's the end of Peter Davison's first season, and it's.
God, that's the one with the. Oh no, okay, that's the one with the Heathrow Airport. Yeah, I haven't seen that since the 80s. It
is so you need vast quantities of drugs to get any sense of it or watch it. It's just it's completely ridiculous. But I mean, I remember being a kid going, what the what? But telling yourself kind of like, well, it's okay because the next one's going to be better, or like the next, I still have to kind of stick with the show because I loved it so much and it was so different, or so there's a lot of stuff that
it was going to get better.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you're right. The memory cheats. I think there's plenty of stuff that you can go back to and go, yep, this is as good as I remember. There's just as much stuff you can go back to and go, this is as bad as I recall, or whatever. And then every now and then you're kind of surprised, either way, or, either side of it. But the SNL thing too was, it's something that SCTV didn't really do. When you think about it, SNL was topical. So, I mean, that stuff is dated, a month later, 2 weeks later, a year later, etc. That's the problem that it's always had, and why those sketches aren't as iconic as the stuff that SCTV and Python did, because they were archetypes. They were just characters that they created instead of constantly commenting on, whoever was in the White House or, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. It's, we could do a whole episode on SNL. We should do that next.
Yeah, we've done SCTV. We should do SNL.
Yeah, we can do that.
So, anyways, we should probably get back to Bill Murray.
Bill Murray, Meatballs, etc. And then... and then, So, he's doing good. No.
Good night, everybody.
So Caddyshack. So now, let me ask you this, though. Because, to me, it's like Animal House, Meatballs, Caddyshack. They're all kind of part of a vibe that starts to kind of happen with a type of film, kind of.
Yeah, the national. Now, first of all, Animal House and Caddyshack are National Lampoon,
right? And
I loved National Lampoon before I could read it as a kid, and that was when you asked me, like 11-year-old me, what my favorite comedies in the world were, they were Animal House, they were Meatballs, and Caddyshack. Absolutely. And then, Caddyshack to this day is a film that I adore like no other. And I'm going to go personal for a minute, but there was a point in my life about 5 years ago, and you know this, where I lost my house. And I was homeless for about 4 days. And my friend, who was away at his cottage, just gave me his house keys and said, stay in my house, don't worry about it. And I was losing my mind. I went through his movies. He had like an old-timey, giant, big screen TV in the basement, like that thing that looked like a Coke machine.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and kids were watching a movie upstairs, and I just wanted to be alone and drink my friend's booze. And I went through his movie collection, and I was like, oh my God, like it's all kind of Saw movies and horror. And the one thing I noticed about my friend that day is like, oh my God, you're anal. Like everything was alphabetized. Like, this is insane. But he had a copy, like just the sore thumb was a copy of Caddyshack. And I put Caddyshack on, and I don't think I've ever laughed as hard at it. I've seen it. I know the beats. But it brought me so much joy that I fell asleep during it. You know what I mean? Like,
that's why I don't trust anybody that isn't into pop culture. Maybe not the degree that we are, but that's what it's about. Like, things should bring you not only to a certain time, or, a song kick off a memory, or, watching that reminds you. I mean, there are things that I can't watch because they make me feel a certain way, or they give me a memory. But there are gold standards that you should be able to go to when it's like, I am so miserable, I can't think of anything to listen to, or I can't think of anything to watch. But if I put that on, I know I'm going to be okay, because
and Caddyshack
that is the best.
Caddyshack, and it is largely the participation of Murray, Dangerfield, and Chase in that film.
Yeah.
And it is, and the other thing that's just beautiful about that movie, and doesn't make me question my relationships, is that my wife adores that movie. She loves it just as much as me. And
it's actually, it's tamer than I remember. I watched it a while ago, and I always thought it was darker or more raunchy than it is. I think actually Animal House is probably raunchier.
It's definitely raunchier. And I'm pretty sure you've seen the National Lampoon was a documentary, and then there's a film version of it. I didn't
the film version, but the documentary I watched. I have it on. Actually, bought it on DVD. I've watched that thing 4 or 5 times. I think it's.
I love both of those.
The film to me was just kind of, I don't know what the point was, because it was just replaying everything in the documentary, basically.
I agree, but I just enjoyed it. And to be perfectly honest with you, these people were people I wanted to be when I grew up. And this brings us to our next film, and it is probably like my favorite of Bill Murray's films, and that's Stripes, because it is the pairing of not only Bill Murray, but of Harold Ramis, which is somebody that I hold in high regard personally.
See, and I knew who Ramis was from SCTV.
SCTV, and so did I. Because
by the time we got it in, I want to say 79 or 80 or something, whatever it was, that it was like I think they put it on Saturday nights, I think, after SNL, or maybe Friday nights, I forget. But they would do the newer stuff, like current stuff, and then they would recycle stuff from the first seaon that had Ramis in it, because Ramis I think, was in the first season, right?
Mo Green, like the whole thing. He was in the first season. I remember the first season very well, but they had begun to show the reruns of SCTV at that point, because the show had hit. And, I was reminded of him, and, being a skinny kid with a big nose and glasses, that guy was like one of my avatars. And I really liked Ramis, and I was very aware at the time, like, that he was a creative force. Like, I knew as a kid he had written Animal House, and I knew as a kid that he, obviously from Stripes, but I knew he had directed National Lampoon's Vacation as well, a non-Murray movie. But
okay, so Vacation was okay. So wait a second. Did Ramis directed Meatballs?
No.
Okay, he did not.
He had written Animal House.
He wrote Animal House, but who directed? It wasn't Ramis that directed Meatballs.
It was Reitman.
It was Reitman. Okay, perfect. So
and you know what? You just reminded me of an anecdote from Meatballs, because I watched it recently, and I'm one of those otaku people that wants to know everything about every fucking movie ever made. And there's a scene in Meatballs, I think it's in a parking lot, a Kmart parking lot, that I swear to God is my local Kmart as a kid, but probably wasn't.
Let's just pretend it was.
I want to believe it, because it could be.
Memory.
It was probably like Markham or but they didn't know if Murray was actually coming to the movie. And there's a note somewhere that the clothes he's wearing at that opening scene in Meatballs are the clothes he showed up in. Because he showed up like that day. And I'm pretty sure the same can be said about Ghostbusters, which we'll get into. But apparently he was like that. Like he was a non-committal, weirdo. And that we'll get into that, I think, later on in the show. But that's hit or miss for me. In terms of that, but it also makes for interesting stories behind the scenes. But
well, it's like this is a semi analogy, I suppose, but it's like I recently worked on something which I'm not going to discuss, but the person that was in charge was such a fucking ball bag in every way possible. It was just. You just knew from the outset this was not going to go well, and they were of a certain age and a certain vibe that had come up in a time where if you treated everybody horribly, or if you were erratic in the behavior, that everybody would jump and freak out and whatever. It's never excusable, I don't think. But if you're really good at what you do, if you really have your stuff wired tight, or if you're a comedic genius or whatever you want to call it, I can excuse a lot of stuff. And so for me, Murray, he's like, I'm sure there's an ego and there's an arrogance and there's just being in his own world kind of thing. But the truth is, he is the best at what he does. Like, there's something about what he does. He hasn't made a lot of missteps in a 45-year career. He knew sort of when to step back or when to walk away. And then it's sort of like to have the confidence to go, I think I'm good at this. I think I know what I'm doing, and I think I'm good at it. And if I like this thing, it is kind of, in the normal world, it would be awful if you had someone like this in your life that you're waiting to hear from to get this thing going, and whether they're going to show up to help you move the couch or whatever it is. But in this other world that he's in, I'm kind of fascinated by, he's always shown up to do the work, and it's always worked.
Yeah.
So it really is a rarefied air that he kind of breathes, that he can do this. It's pretty extraordinary when you think about it. Because I'm sure you've heard as many stories as I have from even way back how, the things he didn't want to do or couldn't commit to or didn't think he wasn't
like
really
Batman.
Well, Well, let's go back to let's rewind a bit, because I just saw something recently that some interviews from '84. Somebody put up these interviews for Ghostbusters. This woman. This will tell you what a different era it is. The woman that's doing the interviewing, she's got to be mid-60s or something, and she was like an entertainment columnist. I don't know who it was, but she gets Murray and Aykroyd and Ramis alone, for this junket or whatever it is. But there's no, if this was being done today, it would be someone about 12 with, 3 assistants.
Who are you people again?
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I heard you did but each of these little clips is like, she's asking the most personal and like uncomfortable. She's grilling Aykroyd about the Wired book that's about to come out about Belushi that Bob Woodward did. And then she's asking Ramis about it because he got interviewed for it too. And she's talking to Murray about Razor's Edge and about a soliloquy he kind of gives, and was he thinking about Belushi at the time? And this is like less than 2 years after, Belushi died, and then she's asking Aykroyd about Belushi, and he's saying some stuff that I've never heard or seen in print, which is pretty amazing, like how little time he was spending with him at a certain point because, he didn't listen to me and he didn't, it was all negativity and it was all, he was going to a very dangerous place and he wouldn't listen to me and pretty interesting. It was very, very. I think if someone tried to do that today, you'd have assistants around going, "Can you not ask that? Don't ask anything about this, and don't say anything about this. Just ask the 3 questions about the movie. You've got 3 minutes. Go." So it's kind of fascinating. But you had said something about him coming into Ghostbusters late, and the famous story about that is Aykroyd. I think the last phone call he had with Belushi was maybe the night of or the night before. I think he was in LA. He was at the chateau, in a bungalow, which I've been to, by the way. And he, and Belushi's kind of in a dark place and Aykroyd says something like, "Look, I'm writing this movie. I'm almost done. Like once this thing gets off the ground, easy street, man, just hang in there. I'm going to be out to LA. I'm going to get on a plane as quick as I can and be out there. We'll hang out." And then the next day, Belushi was dead. But he was talking about Ghostbusters because he was the Venkman part was Belushi. So what is your take, or what have you always heard about Murray's involvement with Ghostbusters and how it all sort of happened?
Yeah, I don't know a heck of a lot about it, because the one thing I did hear was that he was cagey about being involved with it and didn't show up until the last day. But, the Ivan Reitman connection is something that I find interesting because, Reitman directed Stripes, which is probably my favorite Bill Murray movie. It's the first movie I ever rented on VHS. And yeah, Laser Blast and Stripes were the first.
Isn't that funny that you can remember? Isn't that weird that you can remember the first movie you rented?
Of course you can, because it leaves an impact on you. And I'm pretty sure we talked about that in our video store episode.
It's mental, though. It's mental.
I know it's mental, but is it? Because I got nothing.
No. Listen, you're talking.
But it also had an SCTV connection.
I can tell you the first single I bought, the first album, the first movie, all that. It's just so fascinating that we can remember shit like that. And that Stripes was the first VHS tape that you rented. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely something.
I mean, if it was all that jazz, I don't think I'd be as excited.
I think that would be the first video disc you rented. Like, why? Stripes was a huge.
It's a great movie. It's a
great movie. It's something that I know note for note, beat by beat, because I think I probably watched it 5 times that weekend. And I love it very much. I tried to show my kids it recently, and it cemented my love of Ramis and Murray.
Ramis is so good in that movie.
He's so great in that. I tried to show it to my kids a couple of years ago, and the version that's available on our streaming service has all these extra scenes added to it that destroy the movie for me. Like, they're just boring. I'm one of those guys that if you want to show me a movie, like a horror movie, a science fiction movie, a comic book movie, and it's Blu-ray, I will race to the deleted scenes. to see what I missed.
Uh-huh.
But one of those guys, if I own a comedy Blu-ray, F those deleted scenes because they didn't work. You know, I just don't agree that there's something I've missed there.
I'll go one step further.
Sure.
I would make the argument that yes, there have been films that can be improved by adding some of the deleted stuff back in. Whether it's, it extends the length by 10 minutes or 8 minutes or whatever, like a little scene here, a little scene there. I could certainly say, that's actually a better version of the film. I think it works better, whatever. But I don't think it works. I don't think it works with comedy. I can understand swapping scenes out or somebody going, look, I hated this thing. The studio made me put it in and then I want to take it out and it's funnier. This is funnier. But comedy is so kind of fragile that adding the stuff, it won't work. It probably won't work because it should be, any good comedy should be, down to like a machine.
Yeah, I can't remember the movie I watched, but I bought a comedy movie on DVD or Blu-ray and I looked at all the deleted scenes and I spent about a half an hour watching them and I sat there going, yeah, I can see why that was cut. Yep, I get that. And I felt like I felt like an editor,
Yeah, it's all about flow. I mean, there's deleted scenes, comedy stuff they're kind of funny on their own, but every time I've gone, yep, I can see why that. There's a famous Ghostbusters one of them, of Murray and Aykroyd as a couple of bums. The night that Ramis is running around getting chased by the terror dog. They shot a scene with the two of them, around a, what do you call it? Garbage bin, a dustbin thing with the fire, the flame coming out of it, like keeping warm. Or they're walking or something and they're doing this, hey, Murray's basically doing Carl from Caddyshack kind of. And Aykroyd's doing like a real, kind of Brooklyn type accent, and it's cool to see it, but you just go, I'm glad that wasn't in the movie. It would have been.
It doesn't help the movie at all.
No, it doesn't help the movie.
Yeah,
Ramis is so good in Stripes.
Oh, he's amazing.
I was always surprised that he didn't do more stuff on camera. Like, I know he had a big brain and he'd write, direct, etc. But he's so good in that movie.
I 100% agree with you.
He's such a perfect foil for Murray. Like, when he tackles Murray, where are you going AWOL? No, I'm deserting. Wait a minute, you're not deserting. And he's like, because you got me into this. And the whole scene on the base when Murray's trying to leave, like Ramis getting really angry, is so freaking funny.
Oh, my God. They're so perfect together.
Yeah.
I love that film. And the number one thing I love about Stripes, I was thinking of this today while I was driving. There's no terrible Stripes 2 made-for-video piece of shit starring, Larry the Cable Guy and Tom Arnold.
Starring Psycho, the guy who played Psycho.
Yeah. It's done. It's a wonderful ensemble piece. It has great lines, quotable lines. John Candy, Dave Thomas is in it. Like, it is really SCTV packed.
Joe Flaherty shows up in it.
Joe Flaherty's hilarious in it. Yeah.
And it was, as a kid, I'm like, oh my God, this is, what's going on? I mean, it wasn't till years later that I understood the connection between, the Second City and SCTV. And how everybody knew each other. Also, I should say again, I went to an all-male military academy for high school. And so when we would go out to march and do our drills and stuff, we had guys teaching us that were, like Vietnam vets and like lifelong, military guys that would teach us in military class and stuff. And we had a guy that we'd call Sergeant Hulka because he kind of had a stray eye. He was a little dude. He was like a tunnel rat, I think, in Vietnam or something. And he had this kind of glass eye, or eye would just go off in a different direction. He had no sense of humor at all. And, I was a smart ass. I mean, I got in trouble a lot for being a smart ass. And if your hair was over your ear, they'd take a razor to it, stand up in front of the class and take a razor to it, and you get demerits that you had to work off. If you didn't, shine your brass and, your shoes and things like that. But we'd go out and do drills and do the scenes from Stripes when they're marching and doing, doo-wah-diddy and stuff like that as much as we could without the military guys hearing us. But, so it was a big joke movie for us in high school because of obviously where we're going.
Before we dive into Ghostbusters and the influence of Stripes, I wanted to talk briefly about a movie that Bill Murray did that's not very good, but has made a huge impact on my life, and that's Where the Buffalo Roam.
Yeah, it's an odd thing. Who directed that again? Because I looked him up a while ago and went, who who directed this? Like, who directed Where the Buffalo Roam? Do you remember?
I need to look at it again.
If I'm not mistaken, it's one of those names that you just.
It sounds like something George Costanza made up. It is directed by Art Linson.
You find a name and you go, oh, that's who. Oh, I think I know that guy. Maybe he ended up, producing, on Golden Pond or whatever. But this was a name when I looked it up. I went, who directed this?
Art Linson. He did end up. He only directed 2 films.
There you go.
But he's the producer of Fight Club.
Yes, he's a big time producer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he only directed 2 movies.
Yeah.
And what's the other movie?
It is called The Wildlife. Isn't that the spin-off of Fast Times?
Yeah, it's Chris Penn and it's Chris Penn because they couldn't get Sean. And who's the other one?
I can't remember, but I just remember I'd seen Chris Penn in 2 movies. The Wildlife and
At Close Range?
No, Reservoir Dogs. And what a crazy that. Wait, what?
Chris Penn, yeah. The Wildlife. So he did 2 movies. So Art Linson. This was basically Where the Buffalo Roam was basically Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas before that film finally got made. Was the character Hunter S. Thompson? I forget, or could they?
Yeah, no, it's actually it's not it's an interesting thing. It made me want to find out who Hunter S. Thompson was. It made me read his books. But I can come back to it and say it's not a great movie.
It's an interesting. If no one out there has seen it, you should find it because it's an interesting.
Oh, you should watch it. Absolutely.
Little footnote. And Peter Boyle, right? Isn't Peter Boyle?
Peter Boyle is playing. Yeah, he's playing what would be considered Dr. Gonzo.
Yeah.
From Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and it romanticizes him a bit, and it's not. I don't know how to put this. It's not a great film, but I will say this. Murray's Thompson is superior to Johnny Depp's Thompson.
Murray's dead on. I love the Gilliam film, by the way. I think.
I just watched that. I turned my daughter on to Hunter S. Thompson. I made her read Fear and Loathing on Las Vegas. Well, I didn't make her.
The Gilliam movie is out of its mind, and it does it in just the right way. And I don't think Depp is wonderful in it.
Depp is wonderful in it, but he is Johnny Depp as Hunter S. Thompson.
He's got Benicio to bounce off of because Benicio is so terrifying in that movie. He just seems like twice as big as he is, height-wise and everything. But when you see Where the Buffalo Roam, you're like, yeah, Murray really nails it. I mean, he really nails it.
It's that whole, first of all, Thompson's a bigger guy. And, it's that whole, cadence. That's the word I'm looking for. It's that cadence, the way you're talking like this.
The cigarette holder in the end of his mouth.
Yeah, he nails that performance.
Yeah. Really good in that. And also one of the few, really one of the few character things he's done. Because he's played lots of different characters in different projects. He's doing a variation on a theme kind of, but like when you look at Carl from Caddyshack and Where the Buffalo Roam, those might be the only two kind of, I mean, maybe the guy in the dentist chair in Little Shop of Horrors, but it's really one of the few character pieces he's done as like playing a larger than life kind of character.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah. Again, completely not the best film that, and not even a really good Hunter S. Thompson film, but Murray's performance in that is fantastic. And one of, I think he's the superior Hunter S. Thompson. That's weird to say that, but, it's kind of uncanny how much the movements and kind of, Depp is a little bigger and a little more cartoonish kind of. Yeah. But just by his very nature, he can't, take over that persona because like I said, Thompson was a bigger guy and he, and Depp does a great job, but,
great. The Alien one's great.
I just saw that a month ago.
Did you ever see The Razor's Edge by chance?
I have never seen The Razor's Edge. I remember going to see Ghostbusters, and Ghostbusters was huge for me because it was the teaming up again of Ramis and Murray, two icons of mine. Mm-hmm. And there was a Razor's Edge advertisement in front of the film, and I remember thinking like, I don't care about Bill Murray being serious.
I think that was the stipulation to get him.
It absolutely was the stipulation for him.
Columbia to get him.
Yeah. And I think he'd also been we can gloss over it, but he was also a supporting role in Tootsie, which probably bought him a lot of gravitas. He was the roommate.
We got to talk about Tootsie. We got to talk about
Do we?
Yes, because the brilliance that he's not in the credits. Like he's not in the opening credits.
Oh, is he not?
I don't think he's credited in that film. And I don't think anybody really knew until that movie kind of hit that Murray was in it.
I knew he was in it because he's in the Mad Magazine parody. And I don't want to tell you how many times that's been helpful to me.
Well, I'll tell you, I guarantee I saw the film before the Mad Magazine parody, because the Mad Magazine parodies always came out a couple months later. And that tells you how little there was to see back then that I was going to see. But I mean, it was, everybody kind of saw this movie. But I'm glad you brought it up because it's one of the things that gets forgotten. I think it doesn't get mentioned in his, Meatballs, Caddyshack, Stripes, Tootsie, Ghostbusters in the span of 5 years. And all of these were big. I mean, Meatballs was a big hit film because it was a tiny budget. So it was really, and Caddyshack, I think, was considered a hit, kind of. It wasn't Animal House. But
Caddyshack was a hit. Yeah.
Yeah, a hit. Tootsie was huge. Stripes was huge. Tootsie was huge. Academy Award nominations up the yin-yang.
Mm-hmm.
And Murray's great in it. He's Murray,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think he's credited in that film. I don't think he's in the opening credits or in the credits. I don't think. So I don't even know how that happened, but I'm kind of fascinated by that. But he was ubiquitous at that point for me. He'd been in my life for, 6-7 years old till whatever. And now when Ghostbusters hit, you're like, oh my God, is there nothing this man can't do?
And Ghostbusters was, massive. It was a big hit.
Massive.
I gotta be honest with you. I loved it when it came out, but I'm just not old. Like I was in the 8th grade when that came out.
Yeah.
And I loved it, and it was just okay after, like, the cartoon came out and when I was in high school, and I was like, this is pretty decent. And then a terrible sequel came out in the late 80s that I've never seen all the way through.
Oh no, I'm gonna stop you right there. First of all,
no, if we're gonna fight.
Let me get in the car. Hang on a second.
Okay.
Or we can keep talking. I love Ghostbusters. It's one of my favorite movies. It's one of the best comedies ever written.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you.
No,
you
cannot be as fond, but it is as a machine of comedy, the machine gun, the jokes kind of go in a script, and how smooth that thing is. It's the best thing Aykroyd's ever done.
Agreed. Except, for Nothing But Trouble, but
it still holds up. The dickless joke is still the loudest I've ever heard an audience laugh in my life at a joke that took the breath away from everybody in the room, basically. And I never saw the cartoon. I never bothered with the cartoon.
It's a decent cartoon.
But it just, for me, it was like, it's not Ghostbusters. It's something else, and I know there's a whole history of it and a whole story behind whatever, but I think the animation, I always thought the animation looked bad, and it was never my thing. It became for little kids. By the time the next movie came out, I remember a couple kids in the theater screaming for Slimer because they knew Slimer because of the cartoon and shit. And I do not understand why the second film has such negativity about it. The only problem with the second film is A, the third act, and B, the fact that it's up against the most, popular comedy that had ever come out at that point. And there was no way to top the original film. But I mean, on its own, and I'm sure people can, fight me on this online or, in the comments or whatever, but, I just rewatched it a couple weeks ago, actually. It's not the first film, but it's funny. There's great stuff in it. But just for me, it's like to see these three guys on screen again, doing stuff. It's like, you've only got so much footage of these guys. And, and the chemistry with Sigourney Weaver works and everything. The third act, and Peter McNichol's freaking hilarious in it. And the third act, it just kind of falls apart because they're trying to duplicate what they did at the end of the first one. I think over the years, it's really been ridiculous how much that movie's been maligned as if it is Nothing But Trouble, which is a steaming pile of dog shit.
Amazement.
I do
know people that think that's the greatest, absurdist movie ever.
I don't know why it gets such negativity because it's not even bad. It's just not. Ghostbusters is brilliant. Ghostbusters 2 is good, but it's not a bad film. I don't know why there's such animosity.
Maybe for me, it was the fact that I was exiting high school when it came out, and my girlfriend at the time had seen it with a bunch of work friends, and I remember going, I don't know who to go see that with, and I just didn't see it, and then, I saw it on HBO, partially, and just, I've never, it's also the fact, for me anyways, that I liked the first film a lot, and I didn't need a sequel. I thought it was great. And
but the argument I always make is I didn't need a sequel to Blade Runner. I didn't need another, whatever. It's not something that I seek out or, really I'm rooting for, but then if it happens, I just hope that that it in the way that I hope it does. I mean, after the first film, I think we were all conditioned at that point as kids or eighth grade or whatever it was to think when something is big and it works, there's going to be another one. I think everybody especially then it hits home video and everybody's going nuts for it again and everyone just kind of assumes there's going to be another one. You knew that the second one was going to be inevitable. It was going to happen. It's the age thing too, different times for different personal experiences of how things are viewed or seen or what have you. I get all that. But there's nothing Murray's doing in it that's radically different than what he did in the first film. And if you like what he did in the first film, it's still Murray playing Venkman. And the thing is, as the years have gone on, it's one of the last pure Murray performances, because as wonderful as he is, and I think probably the best acting he's ever done is Rushmore. And Rushmore should have won every award under the sun for that, because he's so sublime in that movie. But he's not doing the smart ass Murray that we knew from SNL and Meatballs and Stripes and et cetera, et cetera. So it's, it's the last kind of vestige of that. And I cherish it for that alone, that it's because everything he started to do was more, took some sort of different turns. I mean, although he did give it, we missed Scrooged. Tell me you like Scrooge, please.
I love Scrooge.
Oh my God.
I saw it in the theater. I still watch it every year. It has a lot to do with Murray's performance in it. I love Karen Allen very much, and
oh my God, Karen Allen.
Karen Allen, yeah. Let's
so
pause
cute.
And think about Karen Allen for a minute.
And David Johansen
and Carol Kane.
Carol Kane. Yeah.
I've often referred to people as John Glover's character in Scrooged. People who want to talk to me or us about getting on the podcast, like, oh, this guy's giving me that. That guy in Scrooged? Yeah.
John Glover vibes.
Yeah.
What is that? What my lacrosse coach said, there is no I in TEAM. That's such a great line. My lacrosse coach said, you not only lecture, you're not only condescending me, you're letting me know you played lacrosse. You do.
It's also my favorite film starring Jamie Farr. And
that's it. That's a tight race. I mean,
I know. There's so many.
Really?
Cannonball Run and
have you done the runs?
Scene Missing.
Give me come on. I always do that. I quote, and this is when you can tell if you're on a set or you're working on a show that the people around you are getting younger or whatever it is if there's noise and like we're trying to get something and there's like, oh, here comes the tractor. Oh, hang on. Guys, we're doing something over here. Come on, guys, we got to get this. Can you get on, someone gets on the walk and like, can you tell them to stop what they're doing across the field so we can get this? I'll do the whole, could you hold goddamn hammering, please? And then it'll just get, could you hold the goddamn hammering? That whole bit when he's on, he's so good in that. And again, that's Murray not really doing Murray. He kind of is, but he's doing a major asshole. But he's doing it so good.
Yeah.
He's like taking the prickliest bits of his Murray stuff and making this asshole guy. But that's a great movie. And I remember when it came out, it did well, but it didn't get a lot of great reviews. It seemed like they were kind of, it's okay, but it's and at the end, the whole thing, and because I think the end was all improvised. I think Murray's most of his speech to the camera is like improvised or something. But over the years, it's become like a perennial.
Look, that's problematic. If you make a film that involves Christmas, apparently it will eventually become a classic. And I would like to cite Exhibit A, Jingle All the Way. One of the worst films I've ever had to sit through next to my giant on a plane.
Exhibit B, Die Hard.
That's not a Christmas movie. Oh,
I'm kidding. I don't know. I don't even know where that came from.
It's a good movie,
but it's become this, but although I haven't really heard much about it the last 5 or 6 years or so, it started to pop up every Christmas. It would be run somewhere.
Well, I love Scrooged. I
love Scrooged.
Yeah, and I've never seen Quick Change.
Oh my God! God! You haven't seen Quick Change?
No, I know what it is.
You got it. Very underrated comedy. It's
got like Randy Quaid and Gina Davis in it. I knew that. I remember the ads.
Jason Robards, Phil Hartman shows up in it. A few other faces you'd recognize, but it's a great movie. It's a great heist movie because it's kind of brilliant how it happens. I think it was a remake of a French film, and he co-directed it with somebody. But it's a kind of forgotten little gem of a comedy. It's really, and he's great in it. He's, I guess, that he is very Murray. He is kind of,
the poster is so 1990. It hurts a little bit.
You got it when you, wait, is the poster with, is it them?
It's them, and there's all these oversized props and the fonts and everything and the color.
The poster when it came out was him dressed as a clown holding.
Oh yeah, I remember that one too. Yeah,
that says more about the tone of the film than the one that you're probably looking at right now, because he's dressed as a clown the first 30 minutes of the movie, basically. But that's a great. If anybody out there hasn't seen that, I recommend it. I haven't seen it in years. Good movie.
I've always enjoyed. I remember I haven't seen it since it was in the theater, but I enjoyed it very much. Which was What About Bob? A great, a great look at therapy, and I've always thought it was a really clever film. That was a Frank Oz movie, and just a comedy they wouldn't make these days.
No. Couldn't make it these days.
Where it's about a therapist being pursued by his biggest fan, and you find that the therapist is actually an asshole and an uptight asshole. I think if I'm not mistaken, Richard Dreyfuss uses like puppets to talk to his children. Like he's a real fucking nut. And
Julie Haggerty is his wife, and
Julie Haggerty.
Little Charlie Korsmo from Dick Tracy is
Tracy and Hook. Yeah, that kid retired, right? Isn't that didn't that kid retire?
I think he disappeared, but then he showed up again in different movies.
That kid was everywhere for a while.
Yeah. He was wonderful. He was so good in everything he did. He had this goofy kind of vibe, but supposedly, and they've asked Frank Oz about it since. They're like, we heard that Dreyfuss and Murray didn't get along, and Frank Oz was like, oh shit, no, not at all. Like two polar opposites in the way they worked. Dreyfuss was showing up as kind of slightly methody and stick to the script, etc. And Murray's just in his own world, and he started to drive Dreyfuss crazy.
So that's what you see on screen is real.
That's my understanding.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah. Was that 90 or 91? That movie.
91, and then Murray disappeared for a couple of years, and then he came out with a film I remember very well because I think it's the last collaboration of him and Harold Ramis, and it's also the beginning where he, and I'm assuming this connection. I was a huge fan of Chris Elliott at the time. So Groundhog Day had Chris Elliott in it, and of course Chris Elliott worked with Murray's brother Brian on Get a Life.
Yeah.
And in The Cabin Boy, a film I own on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And I love Groundhog Day. And weirdly enough, that year, and this is just like anecdotal for me, I went to a Groundhog Day celebration in 1993, around that time. That's my wife and I think it was our first trip away when we were dating. We went to Wyerton, Ontario's Groundhog Day. And it was what it was. But I think that's kind of funny that I'd never heard of a Groundhog Day until I went there.
I actually saw that in the Twin Cities at a preview screening. And I think it was maybe 2 weeks before the movie came out, and it might have been on the U of M campus or something.
Oh yeah.
And just the crowd was just like, I mean,
it's good film.
That's when you remember, going to a comedy with like a full house when people would go see movies, and sometimes you couldn't hear the next line because the laugh was.
Yeah.
And I remember he's got a line where he's laying down with Annie McDowell, and it doesn't even belong in the script. It just came out of nowhere, but I started laughing, and my girlfriend at the time kept nudging me like, stop. And I was with this other guy, and we both just could not stop laughing. And he says, she's falling asleep kind of on his shoulder in his hotel room or something. And he says, he says something like, go ahead, you can fall asleep. If you fall asleep, I won't touch you much. And he leaves that little pause, and then he says much. And it's just this dumb, like an 8-year-old, a dumb joke that an 8-year-old would make, like to get a giggle from somebody. And the two of us could not stop laughing.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend was nudging, because then at this point we almost had to leave the theater, but it was just something so silly about what he said, the way he said it. It killed us. But that was a big movie too. And it's funny that has become, not a, traditional or yearly type thing, even though I'm sure they play it on Groundhog Day somewhere.
I'm a little tired of seeing all the various remakes of it.
Well, but that's isn't it interesting that now it's gone into the vernacular, where anytime someone's like, "Oh, I hate my job," it's been this nightmare. It's like fucking Groundhog Day coming in here. It's referencing this movie. It's become like a what do you call that? Was it an adjective? What's it called?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's entered the nomenclature.
The nomenclature. Thank you.
Exactly.
Nomenclature. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. That's one to grow on. So
and then
what happened after that? Was it The Man You Knew Too Little?
No, you don't. No, we will get there. Mad Dog and Glory, a film I've also never seen, but I believe that's a role reversal film, kind of like Neighbors, where he's the tough guy and De Niro's the quirky guy.
It's a weird movie. It's worth seeing, but it's a misfire because it's so dark and weird. Murray's like a mob guy. De Niro's a police photographer. He's like the lamest cop on the in the office kind of, and he inadvertently like saves Murray's life one night, and Murray is like indebted to him. Come on, and Murray's character wants to be a stand-up. He's a mob guy, but he wants to be, and the whole thing just seems like kind of a piss take on how these things go. But then it gets weird because he sends De Niro Uma Thurman as like a thank you present kind of thing, like, but, she can, do errands for you or clean your house or whatever. And then it gets, weird. It's just a strange, and then they have like a fist fight in it toward the end. And I think it was done by, the guy who did, who's the guy do you remember the movie Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer?
Yeah, vaguely.
The guy who directed that, I think this was his next movie, was
weird.
Yeah, and it just, I saw it in the
oh my god, yeah, this dude directed The Borrower too, which is a really weird movie.
The which one?
The Borrower.
The what?
The Borrower. I'm probably screwing this up. It's a weird movie about, I think it's like an alien where it just keeps like ripping off people's heads and taking them.
The Borrower. Oh yeah, I think I've seen that.
Am I saying that?
Yeah, weird? Sorry, I thought you said the Boer War. I'm like,
yeah, the Boer War, which it starred some of my wife's relatives.
Boer War. But he did another one that year, didn't he?
He did. He did Wild Things, and I didn't realize his name was James McNaughton, and I didn't realize his career was. Or are you talking about Murray? I think you're talking.
No, I was talking about Murray, but Murray shows up in. Is it the? There was like a Shakespearean thing I think he did, or there was a.
Well, could be. There was.
He started showing up in more supporting things, right?
Yeah, like he's in Ed Wood, as Bunny Breckenridge, and he's just he steals the show.
Yeah.
One of my favorite comedic parts he's ever done is Kingpin.
Yes.
Kingpin, for me, because he's playing such an asshole and everyone loves him, and it's Farrelly Brothers movies can be hit or miss, but every time Murray's on screen, he's such garbage. He's such hot garbage. And everyone just adores him. And I won't repeat some of the lines because they're filthy, but like he's an asshole through the whole film and everyone just laps it up. And you can just tell how much fun he's having on that set. Yeah. And it's just infectious and I love it. But then he kind of goes through this period where he goes from there and then he just makes steaming turd after steaming turd. Like the late 90s are really weird for him. Like, he makes this stupid elephant movie, and then he's in Space Jam, and then we get to The Man Who Knew Too Little.
Man Who Knew Too Little is a great comedy.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's got, like, not good Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay. So if we were going to go by Rotten Tomatoes, I don't know how well you enjoy Paul.
I've never seen it. It smelled to me.
It is the elephant one. I've seen everything he's ever done, and yes, there's bad stuff. Space Jam is awful. I didn't see it for him.
You've seen both Garfield films?
I have seen both Garfield films. Yes, believe it or not.
I gotta go.
So the elephant thing, I don't even remember, other than it's one of the earliest, like, McConaughey things, like after Dazed and Confused. You remember that time when he started getting on the cover of every magazine, like here comes, A Time to Kill or whatever, like he's the next it person. This was that was the last supporting thing he did before he blew up in this elephant. That's the only thing I remember about the elephant movie. But Man Who Knew Too Little is a fun little comedy, and it's the what do you call? He thinks he's showing up to pretend murder investigation, playing a character. And his brother gets him this gift, one night to get him away from, because he shows up unannounced, and then real espionage is taking place. He thinks it's a game the whole time. So it's and it's just silly and actually quite good. It's funny. It's a funny little movie, but nobody saw it. But Murray's great in it.
I have a feeling that the post-Austin Powers world, combined with anyone who saw Master of Disguise, probably ruined that film. And then you got like Johnny English and all that stuff. So
Master of Disguise, good gravy. I forgot about that.
Best film ever made.
I forgot about that movie. That was who Dana. He didn't direct.
It was Dana Carvey. It was all Dana Carvey.
Man, that was. Yeah, but again, there's a guy you go, what do we do with this guy? All he does is characters. All he does is, he's never really himself. So what do you put him in? Well, let's make a bunch of disguises. And it's like, oh boy.
You put him in a terribly written film.
Yeah. What came after Man Who Knew Too Little?
Wild Things. He was in Wild Things. Which
so this is when he starts to just show up and, right? Like.
Yeah. No, not really, because, he did Rushmore in '98 as well. And Rushmore is considered, absolutely one of his, I think that was a turning point for him, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah. I would totally agree with that.
I mean, it's all of a sudden now, Bill Murray's changed forever by Rushmore.
It's funny,
and I like the film, but
everybody because it was around the same time that he did Broken Flowers. It was like a year later or something, maybe, or Lost in Translation. Everybody talks about Broken Flowers and Lost in Translation as this, that's when he started to get the acclaim. But I think Rushmore is like, I don't think he's ever bettered Rushmore. He's just, that character's so perfect for him.
He's very vulnerable and
and he's a kid. I remember where I worked at the time, just being in love with this movie and this young lady that I worked near, that we may or may not have gotten to know each other better as time went on. But
you can't be a tease.
I took her to see the movie. And I tried explaining it to her, like, well, we'll just go tomorrow. Come on, I'll be fine. Trust me, it's got some good. And she laughed a little bit. But I remember kind of pitching it to her, or maybe it was afterwards. And she said, I just don't get it. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I mean, it's like a love triangle or something. It was like two grown people and a kid. That doesn't make any sense. And, of course I go, yeah, that's why it's so absurd and it's so funny. It's just the heightened ridiculousness of, Murray's as much of a child as the kid is, and well, we didn't hang out much after that, but
I get it.
Yeah.
But I had a friend who called me after Starship Troopers once, and said, I don't get it. They should have just nuked that planet with the bugs. It's like, you really didn't get it, like, at all.
Wow.
Yeah, you don't see subtext or...
So you're like...
Why are we friends?
So for you, the movie would have been better if it was, like 90 minutes shorter?
Yeah. Just blow up those bugs. And it's like, yeah. And I have another friend who's like, did you notice that, like, that one room is just clearly the Reichstag? And it's like, yeah, this is why we hang out.
Wow. That is... Well, you know what? At least he noticed, I guess. I'll give him that.
That was one friend of mine, but I'm just talking about like a dichotomy of friends that I had.
Yeah.
That one friend.
No,
I don't know why they would just nuke that bug planet. And it's like, because, oh God. And I wanted to get out Richard Dreyfuss's puppets, but, I'm struggling to see some of these films because I think that this period, Bill Murray was kind of doing stuff like, I've never heard of Cradle or Rock. He was in Hamlet.
The one. Yeah, I told you there was a Shakespeare one. Somebody did a modern, I want to say Ethan Hawke was in it maybe. It was like a modern retelling of...
Oh, you're right. It's Ethan Hawke and Kyle MacLachlan and, my God, Shepard and...
Who directed it? Who directed it?
Michael Almerida.
Yeah, I think I saw it, but...
What a great cast. Casey Affleck, Tim Blake Nelson, Jeffrey Wright. Paul Bartel.
They kept the text and just made a modern telling, with airplanes and big business and whatever. And it was, that was the sort of the quote draw of it. Cradle Will Rock, he's not in much, but that's an ensemble thing too about, Orson Welles, trying to put this play on at a certain time with the Mercury Theater, and
it's a Tim
Robbins, I think, wrote and directed it, but it's got John Turturro and Sarandon and Murray and a ton of people in it. It's a good movie. It's Reuben Blades is in it, but it's it's not a fun movie. It's just it's good, but I mean, he wasn't. Yeah, he was showing up in things where he wasn't the main draw, and he clearly was like, I don't need to work. I just want to work with whoever.
And here comes the paycheck. Charlie's Angels.
Charlie's Angels.
Mick G's classic Charlie's Angels, which I can't believe it's 21 years ago.
Was huge. It's a terrible film, but it was huge, and you'd think. Talk about a paycheck, you'd be like, well, yeah, he's going to be in the number 2. Of course he's going to be in the second one. My God. It's like, but he walked away. He's like,
well, yeah, because him and Lucy Liu had some conflict. And to be honest with you, who cares? Was he replaced by Bernie Mac?
Yeah.
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 For a forgettable sequel.
It's a paycheck. That's what I've always admired about him, is that he can just go, I don't need to.
And then he did Osmosis Jones, which I forgot was a thing.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's terrible. That's a Farrelly thing. Isn't that Farrelly's? Isn't that the Farrelly's?
Osmosis Jones? I have no idea. It's this cartoon.
I think they directed...
Oh, yeah, it was a Farrelly Brothers cartoon. Oh, my God, I don't remember.
They directed the live... He's in the live action stuff, and then you go inside the body where this war is taking place.
I don't care.
Yeah, well, what it is, he hooked up with the Farrellys again, to be in the, so he's in about 20 minutes total of the film, basically.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he enjoys working with those dudes. Yeah. And then I'm just going through this. Sorry, he's got so many. Of course, Royal Tenenbaums, which would be a reuniting with him and the director of.
Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson, Ernie Anderson's kid, and
he's been in every Wes Anderson flick.
Lost in Translation was another turning point for him. That's Sofia Coppola.
Yeah,
and ScarJo. I love ScarJo. And I haven't seen that in a long time. He's in Coffee and Cigarettes.
He's great in Coffee and Cigarettes.
Yeah, that's another thing. I can't believe that's 18 years ago. Garfield, the best thing he's ever done.
Very close.
I think it's always ironic that he did Garfield, but the guy who voiced Garfield, or Lorenzo Music, voiced Bill Murray in the original Ghostbusters cartoon until they replaced him with Dave Coulier. I know way too much about that cartoon.
Yeah.
And then the Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, a film I've always wanted to see and never have.
I think you would really dig that movie.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where we just never intersected.
Great. He's terrific in that.
Is he as good as he is in Garfield, The Tale of Two Kitties?
Well, since he's not on camera, I'd say he's in Life Aquatic than he is in Garfield movies.
And then the thing I wanted to bring up.
Can I say, yes, he did the Garfield films. He got a big fat paycheck and a ton of money for it.
I bet he did.
All he had to do was sit in a room and talk into a microphone. And in, like I said, a 45-year career, I'm not hearing a lot of like huge missteps or bloated, blockbuster.
Well, we know now that, actually, no, I have a problem with it because I want to know why a cat who doesn't have a job hates Mondays.
Well, that you need to talk to Jim Davis about.
Oh my God, Jim Davis isn't real. He's a corporation.
I don't see how Murray can answer that, but Jim Davis might give you some insight.
I don't think Jim Davis exists. And then I wanted to talk a bit about. I saw this recently, Zombieland, and I don't like Zombieland very much. But the one thing that really bothers me about it is. And this is just something I feel for the fans. I don't care if we ever get another Ghostbusters movie.
I was going to say, I hope you were going to say the magic words. The one thing I really can't stand about it is Jesse Eisenberg. See, that
is always, I can't bear Jesse Eisenberg.
I cannot fuck.
Although I have seen a couple movies that I like him in, but this isn't one of them.
His shtick was okay in like Roger Dodger and, the Squid and the Whale, but then the same thing over and over.
I can make up movie names too.
Did you ever see Roger Dodger, the one with him?
No, have you seen, Red Candle?
Yeah. It's a Tarkovsky film, I think.
Club Soda Can.
But he's,
I'm not naming things.
That's what put me off even seeing Zombieland was the fact that this guy again.
Oh no, I can't bear him. But
I will say, as a movie, I thought it was fine.
Yeah,
and eventually saw the second one because we were in the middle of a pandemic, and eventually it showed up, and I think I rented it for $5, and it was fine. But I'm not a fan of those films. I think they're fine for what they are, but it's not my bag.
And then I'm just going through some stuff. I know he had a television series with his brothers where he played golf on Comedy Central at one point, and that always felt like the biggest middle finger to the world. And I appreciated that about him. It's like he somehow sold. It'd be like, if you and I could go bowling and be on TV or, just something stupid. I
just felt like he was, it just felt to me that he was just trying to help his brothers because it just wouldn't have.
Well, I don't think Brian Doyle Murray needs any help. There's always a need for a Brian Doyle Murray in every.
Yeah, but I mean,
John Murray, if you've ever seen Moving Violations, does not have his own essence. He is just imitating his brother.
Yeah. The other Murray too, the one that was Mad Men, who's great in Mad Men, but it's the kind of thing that like if the Murray brothers came without Bill to make this show, it probably wouldn't have happened.
I'm a huge fan of Brian Doyle Murray because he has his own flavor, but he's never going to be the most popular Murray brother. No,
the kids that watch Comedy Central were not going to tune in for Brian Doyle Murray playing golf with his two brothers.
No, absolutely. I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying.
But I totally forgot about that. I think he's got I think they have a line of golf wear too. I think the Murray have like a line of golf, or somebody does, or like the Murray brothers or Murray something. They have a line that they lend their name to or something. I'm not a golfer, so I don't know.
My wife's a golfer. I'm Jerry Lewis on a golf course, so that's not happening. Except I'm funny.
Oh.
One of my favorite bits he did in later life is he is in the finale of he plays Walter Gunderson, the mayor on Parks and Rec, and he basically plays a corpse in the episode, and it's funny as hell.
Yeah.
And he, of course, is in the greatest film ever made, something I've never sat through, which is the 2016 Ghostbusters, which I think enraged a lot of people who wanted a Ghostbusters sequel, and he kind of dragged his heels, and then, we got the amazing, I don't care.
You opened the can of worms.
Oh, no, I want to hear what you have to say.
I've seen it.
Okay.
And when it got announced, of course there is the problem with everything now is when there is a vocal minority or a vocal bunch of, idiots or whatever it is that are spewing whatever they're spewing in whatever corner of the universe, then anytime anyone sides with said point of view, then they must is in the realm of the point of view, then of course they must side with everything those people are saying. The thing about the 2016 film is it's just not a good movie. It's not fun, not good. It's ill thought out every which way. You don't know what the point of it is. And yes, there were a lot of people waiting and hoping that maybe one day they would get another film. I don't think that's that unusual. And so, there's in fact, the Blu-ray that I had of Ghostbusters 2 has got an interview with Aykroyd and Reitman. And it's after Ramis died. So Ramis died in 2014, I think, maybe. And the guy, at the end of the thing is asking them, well, is there going to be, and I think we finally got it worked out. I think we're going to, Aykroyd was trying to do it for years and years, and Murray was dragging his heels and so on and so forth. And they're talking about it. Reitman and Aykroyd like, yeah, we're very close. I think it's going to happen. And then I don't know the full story of how that went away and suddenly this other thing came to be. So yeah, you've got a bunch of people that are ugly human beings in their core that are screaming about all the wrong things about this film. But there's plenty of people that just go, well, if you had something lined up that was going to happen, why would you take this turn and do this? And now, of course, it's going to be this footnote that no one's going to pay attention to because it just was ill-conceived and poorly thought out. And now you get, before it even hit the theater, I think they were talking about this other one. So I don't know what all the ins and outs were of the politics of how that happened, but it's very strange that all the principles were ready to go and then it becomes something else altogether.
Yeah, I have no idea, and I don't have a dog in this race, but the thing I remember very much about it, though, was that, my wife was all for it. She liked the ladies in the film. She liked the previous film they made, which was Bridesmaids. And then, she watched it and she said, "Oh no, it's just terrible. It's not a funny movie." And I just took it from that because I didn't want to sit through it. I don't care all that much. And
but see, this is where we differ because I have this sick need that I don't want to have to sit through this shit either. Like, I don't want to have to sit. There are certain shows that show up and I go, well, fuck, I'm going to have to watch 3 episodes of this because someone's going to be talking about it. And if I give an opinion without having seen some of it. So I have this little voice in the back of my head that always goes, okay, just, do it. And again, I've never gone like public with how I felt about it with anybody, but I have to go, okay, fine. Because I'm not vehemently against, like we were talking about the Eternals before this. Like, yeah. I got nothing against the Eternals. There's nothing about it that seems remotely interesting to me in anything that I've seen, and I will see it. I'm not going to say I'll never watch that.
Oh yeah, I'll pop it on someday.
But I will see it at some point, and I think that's what happened with the 2016 one. I think I eventually saw it I think I might have seen it just on HBO or something whenever it premiered. But I sit through things so other people don't have to, and I can go, yeah, it is pretty.
Euro.
But but it is, on when you like you say, the talent involved, the people. Feig is a great guy, and he's made some great stuff. And
and if you actually watch Bridesmaids, you can't say it's not a funny film.
It's a very funny movie. And
but I think the Red Letter Media guys, your favorites there, did point out that why didn't they hire a screenwriter from that? Like, they brought all the talent but one, and that seemed to make the difference, is that it's not a good script.
It's that, but it's also then the other layer to it too is you go, why are you trying to reinvent the wheel? I mean, why not? How about another vehicle for these talented people to have a franchise with or do something with? Because again, you pitch this in a room, or you just sort of, I mean, again, unless the script comes in, you go, oh my God, this is the best script ever. This is the best thing since, the Producers in 1968 or whatever, like the funniest damn thing I ever read. You have to be thinking, there's a very good chance this isn't going to work. There's a very good chance this is not going to be a $200 million smash. The failure of it wants to be hung around the necks of these neckbeard idiots on social media.
My son uses that term too, neckbeards.
It's accurate, and of course they're out there. They're there. Let them. They can have that corner of the world. I want nothing to do with it. But it's both things can be true, that these people are idiots, and some of what they're, a tiny portion of what maybe they're, going, why would you, but how come that's just such a bad, and sometimes it goes the other way and something works and you go, oh yeah. And if I had sat through it and it had been great, I'm not going to go, oh my God, what a way. I'm going to go, that was really funny. We've sat here talking about a bunch of movies that you haven't, that have turned you off, or that I've sat through and I've gone, that's actually a good film. It's a funny thing. I would absolutely sit here and say, if it worked, I would say it worked. It was great. I wish it would have been this, but it's this and it actually works. It's just a bad movie. It's just bad in every which way.
I agree. The Dead Don't Die.
Yeah.
Which I watched. It's another Jarmusch film. It's full of people I love, including, Tilda Swinton, and I don't get it. I wanted to get it.
Yeah, it's a weird. Are you a Jarmusch fan?
I don't hate Jim Jarmusch, but what was that supposed to be?
That's the thing, and I guess at this point, if you haven't seen it, come on, it's been out for a few years, so I hate to be a killjoy, but it takes a turn at a certain point that is pretty weird and kind of meta, even for Jim Jarmusch and the stuff that he's done. And I've been seeing movies since I went to Stranger Than Paradise when I was like 14. I knew who he was. So I love his stuff. I mean, some of it's a little hit or miss, but overall I think he's a unique voice, and God bless him.
Yeah, no, I respect him very much.
But it is an odd, I
feel like he was taking the piss out of zombie movies.
Well, you look at the trailer, and when you see the trailer, and then you see the film, the first 45 minutes or so, you're going, this is kind of what I expected. This is kind of the reactions from the people and these characters. This kind of makes sense. This is going somewhere, even if a lot of his stuff doesn't really go anywhere, in traditional sense of storytelling, but it's going somewhere. But then it takes that turn. Do you know what I'm saying? When it takes the turn in the car, the conversation between Adam Driver and Murray about the song and the script.
Yeah.
And you're going, what just happened?
Yeah. It turns it on its ear.
Yeah. It breaks the wall, and you're going, what? Did they just say that? And then it just sort of just spirals out from there. It's a weird,
not satisfactory conclusion.
That would be a good summing up. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a weird movie.
Yeah. Jim Jarmusch, by the way, I believe he's really hilarious on The Simpsons. Have you ever seen that episode on The Simpsons where I think they go to Sundance?
No.
Oh yeah, no, it's pretty funny. He's directing like a cheaper by the dozen sequel, but it's like where they're all dead. You know, it's just all these tombstones on the poster. But let's get into it. Let's go there. I'm assuming you have seen Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I have. I saw it opening weekend.
And, we can't do an episode 2 years later on this because that's when I probably sit down and watch it if that happens. I thought Ghostbusters was awesome when it came out.
Yeah.
I bought a button, one of those like rectangle or square buttons you get, and I had that on my shirt until, some guy in the 9th grade went like, that's a loser thing, and I threw it away. But, I've never owned a single piece of Ghostbuster toys or anything. Like, I still think that first film is awesome. It's a perfect film in a lot of ways. It has a lot of wonderful satire to it. I guess in my defense, I just didn't think it was a universe. In the same way that, I don't need to see another Stripes movie or another Caddyshack movie, even though I was first in line for that.
I don't know if that's as good a comparison because.
No, I get you. I guess I just, I think it is the way that I view it as a great comedy, but not a great adventure film.
Okay, but the thing is, but you got to remember. I mean, again, I'm not trying to sound like Captain fucking Marketing because I'm not.
I think you're mansplaining to me.
This is a movie that was made in 1984. Okay, and Ghostbusters, as a thing, whether it makes its way into sneaker design or referencing or that logo, whatever, has been present ever since. It's not been a daily thing or a weekly thing or whatever, but the legend of this thing has loomed large for 30 years. So it's like, it's not because Caddyshack has not loomed that way. Stripes is not in the vernacular that way. I'm going to bring that word back that you threw in earlier. It's just not. This is a cultural thing that everybody kind of knows, and generation after generation seems to show that movie to their kids. I mean, a couple of my friends,
and that's fair. I've shown my kids that film.
But I mean, I'd say that if all of my friends that have kids have shown them Ghostbusters, they have not shown them Stripes. They have not shown them Meatballs or whatever. There's something about this thing that is bigger than a Bill Murray movie or something. It was tailor made to be a franchise.
Absolutely was. I think it's a very marketable film.
So again,
I think what the one thing that effed it up is that they took so long to sequel it.
Right. Well, that's a lot of that is Murray. A lot of that had to do with Bill Murray, and a lot of it had to do. Then he had a falling out with Ramis, whenever that was.
That was in 1993 after Groundhog.
Well, I mean, it was, I don't know if it was that soon, but it was, I know that as of,
it never worked again.
I know, but I'm saying as of 8-9 years ago, Aykroyd had talked about having Murray on board. Like it was still going to happen. Like it had kept starting and stopping. And the biggest problem was Murray. I know he reconciled with Ramis before Ramis died, but it sounded like, there's tons of videos that have been made where like there were times it got closer and closer to actually happening. And I think each time Murray kept backing out or whatever the reasoning might be. I don't know how all this happened as fast as it did. But again, if you're asking at this point, did I want another one? Well,
yeah.
No, I mean, if it was like, hey, it'd be great if you guys could, get the band back together. No, but if it's going to happen and the principals are involved and someone is involved that seems to care about what made the property unique or worthwhile or interesting in the first place, then I sort of get on board. I don't have any expectation. I don't go in thinking this is going to, blow my mind. As it happens, I loved it. It was great.
Oh,
but
that's good to hear.
But I'll say this. It's much more of I've seen most of the stuff that Jason Reitman's done. I can't remember which ones I liked and didn't. I thought Juno was crap. But
I liked Juno.
But it's actually more of a throwback to a type of film. And somebody used the term in something I read, like the Amblin type stuff. Remember Arachnophobia? Remember the movie Arachnophobia?
Very much. Yeah. Why isn't that a bigger
great movie? Great movie.
Why isn't that something we're still talking about? That was a good film.
I do not know. That was such a good film, and it's anytime it's on, I'll stop and watch a bit of it. But it's got that vibe to it. It's almost like the smartest thing he did was, if you're going to take this thing and they're going to make a franchise, who's going to be involved in what, I don't know. But I'll say this too, man, it seems to be really difficult for anybody to make a property of any kind that can write kids well. Not that are smarter, that have the banter, the kind of shit you see on shows where everybody's as clever as the next person and, bitching and, being a certain, stereotype of a character, whatever. These feel
You're
like
just reminding me of Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, it's that kind of,
the kids always spoke like better than I did.
Yeah, this kid spoke the way the guy who wrote the scripts speaks, but you couldn't get 4 people in a room to speak that way if your life depended on it. That's just, there's no individuality or difference in there's, several kids in this, and they're completely different in their vibe and their tone. And it's well written, and it takes its time, and it's more about building this little world with these characters, with the ghosting and the threat involved as as part of that, and then the Ghostbusters. It's never like every 3 minutes somebody talks about the Ghostbusters or mentions ghostbusting or whatever. And in the trailer you can see where somebody says, whatever it is, Paul Rudd or whoever finds the ghost trap and say, "Oh, look at this," and the kids go, what do you mean a ghost? What's a Ghostbuster? And you get people going, how could they not know this thing was? Well, really? How could they not know? This is a generation of people that information moves so fast. They don't know what a map looks like. They've never had to memorize a phone number. I mean, why would a 17-year-old today know what happened in New York City in 84 and 89?
Oh, okay, I'll give you that. That's,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like that's how well thought out the script is, I think. And it's not going to change anybody's life, and it's not 1984, but it's a really nice job. It really is. You can tell that it's done by somebody that cares about this stuff, and it is not full of, there are winks. It'd be ridiculous if there weren't a wink or two, or like a Twinkie or something. But it's not like it's a rapid fire succession of pop culture references involving the Ghostbusters. It's just not.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah, it opens differently than the first two did. It doesn't even keep the tradition going of, the Bond films open with the gun barrel, the opening thing, the gun barrel shows up, and then the opening thing, and then the credits. It even does that differently. So it's not, I was really impressed with how he kind of wove it all together. And then when they show up, you'd have to be a darker soul than mine to not be moved by seeing this, one more time kind of on screen. But again, it's like, I keep making this equation about Blade Runner. One of my favorite films. I love it to death. Never needed another one. Never thought I'd ever get one, but it's beyond the possibility. But then it happened, and I'm like, holy shit, I didn't realize how much I did need that in my life, because if you're going to do it right, then that's what I like. It's like the conversations we have. We had a conversation pre-recording about the last Bond film. We've talked about Doctor Who and things like that, where do your thing. It's either going to appeal to me or it's not. But if it's in the pocket of what I love about it, or the way I would like it to be done, then great. But I'm never going to go online and, blog.
Well, like I said to you, when we were prior to this, when we were, when I was from the age of 0 to 31 years old, there were 2 different actors that played Spider-Man, and that was Nicholas Hammond and Tobey Maguire. And since that, in the last 20 years, I can't, we've had how many Spider-Man movies, how many, and pop, I've been a patient boy all my life, and pop culture is a number 10 bus. And if I don't like the current Doctor, I know the Doctor will regenerate. If I don't like this iteration of Star Trek, well, that's fine. Maybe I'll like the next one.
And further, as we always say, it's not like your, original series DVDs disintegrate.
Exactly. That was the one thing that I just always loved is Rob Zombie remade Halloween. And you know what? That was 10 years ago, 15 years ago? People are not talking about that one. They're still talking about John Carpenter's, which I have on Blu-ray. So, Shazam.
You just made my point. There are things that are these signposts or these moments that sort of capture the zeitgeist or whatever it is. The other thing that's interesting about the 84 Ghostbusters too, and I was thinking about this once you this topic at me, because even though I know it by heart, I hadn't watched it in years.
Yeah, and I want to point out that I've watched Ghostbusters maybe 4 times in my life.
Okay, yeah, I just know it's one of those movies I just know by heart. But I watched it again a couple weeks ago, and then I watched the second one in anticipation of seeing this movie, and it struck me again that it's such if they had made it in 1980, let's say, forget technology, forget what the effects would have been, etc. You would have had hair length a certain way. You'd have even had flares. They probably would have been wearing flares in some of the scenes, like flared trousers, It just would have felt more 1980. It's got that luck to it, the way Blade Runner did, where the fashion in it, the look of the characters. You know what I mean? If you look at Murray and Ramis and Aykroyd in that 84 film, and you just showed it to someone, you couldn't tell what year that was.
No, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's nothing about it that sticks out as, like a photo from the set of Family Ties, where you just go, that was 1985. I can tell, even Marty McFly, what he's wearing in the first movie, where you go, okay, that I know exactly.
That's timeless. No, I get it.
But you look at these guys, and there's something kind of, there's like a new wave kind of.
But you know why? Because
they're middle-aged.
They're middle-aged dudes. They're middle-aged dudes. And that was part of the joke of the film. They're huffing and puffing up the stairs.
I'm talking more like the visual justice of. But the other thing I thought of too is Moranis. Moranis, and you and I love these guys so much, and SCTV and frickin' Moranis. Moranis is so good in the first Ghostbusters. He's great in the second one too, but he's so good in that first one that you almost go, the nerdy guy that he's doing, it's almost like he made the blueprint for it. I know there were nerdy guys before him in movies, but he just was so completely that character, and not even as goofy as he is and as over the top as he is, you believe that is a guy that could exist in this world at that time, wearing the sweatsuit and talking to her in the hallway and stuff. It's just, there's a timelessness kind of to some of it that I was really struck by, the aesthetic kind of, and how they're dressed and stuff. So yeah, it's very lucky that I think that's one of the reasons that it's one of the reasons that something like Star Wars or even something like Planet of the Apes, the first Planet of the Apes, what about that really shows what year it is? Like, if you were to show that to a 15-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 20-year-old that had never seen it before, a nice pristine print, would they know when it was made? I don't think so. I think there's something about these.
They'd know it was old, but you're right.
You know what I mean? And it's some things show up and they have that advantage that they're not. Star Wars comes close. If the haircuts had been a little more feathered, you'd know.
Yeah. Star Wars has. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
it's such on the razor thin wire of, boy, that was close. That could have been, one design off, and you would have known what year it was. One decision
a little more sideburn.
Right. And... Yeah, exactly. So I think that's one of the things about Ghostbusters too, is that it is this thing that keeps getting passed down and is in the culture in a way that a lot of other stuff isn't. And it's certainly, I think if anybody thinks of Bill Murray, or most people think of Bill Murray, I would think immediately would go to Ghostbusters before anything else that he did, because it's the thing that every family has sort of shown or experienced, I think.
You mean they wouldn't go to the SCTV, the Days of the Week appearance he made?
No, or maybe the Razor's Edge.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Actually, I do have a friend who loves that film. I've never seen it. But obviously, I believe Murray as a dramatic actor, because
I've actually seen the Razor's Edge. I rented it on VHS.
And was that not the impetus to make Ghostbusters in the first place?
I think my understanding was that he was hell-bent on making this thing, and Columbia agreed, yeah, you can make this as long as I think it was the turning point to get them to pony up the dough for this thing, which wasn't an expensive movie. It didn't make a dime. But I remember watching it think, he's fine in it. He's good in it. It's fine. It's a you see it and you kind of forget it. But at the time thinking, please tell me that he's going to do more comedies.
Yeah, I remember that was the reaction I had as a kid.
Yeah.
When I was watching the preview for Ghostbusters, 13 years old, going, yeah, he's not going to just make these kind of films, right?
Right. Yeah, so that worry. And it is a really strange footnote in that career that he, at that particular time, that he wanted to do this so badly. And it's not a bad film. It's just like, what? Really? What? And I think he then, after Ghostbusters, didn't he move to Paris and live there for years? And, I don't think he showed up in Little Shop of Horrors. He shows up in that. And then
the only reason I wanted to see that film, and I've never seen that film, is I've seen the original black and white.
I'm going to take a pattern here with you. It's either you're like, and I've never finished that film. I saw part of it, but I haven't finished it yet. And I've never seen that film. So you never saw Little Shop of Horrors to see him in it?
No, I didn't go see it because at the time, I have no answer to this. I've seen the original Corman Little Shop of Horrors, but I've never seen the musical version. No,
I saw the musical version because, hey, there's nothing to see. There's nothing to see at the theater, and in the trailer it was like, oh my God, Steve Martin, Rick Moranis, Bill Murray, isn't it? John Candy. I'm going. They got my $8, and I went and saw it.
Well, you lived in a metropolitan area, sir.
What did you live in, Hobbiton?
I lived in a town where I would work. I worked in a variety store, and I would sell cigarettes to men who looked like, if you closed your eyes and said farmer, that guy, like the red cap. And
so Little Shop of Horrors never made it to that neck of the woods.
It was tough to get there. Yeah. And, money, and you picked your battles.
No,
And,
I always had money because
yeah,
I worked bussing tables in junior high, and then by the time I got to high school, I was waiting tables every weekend, Friday, Saturday night, probably illegally because I was, handling booze, and I was, 14, 15 to 17, 18. I waited tables for 7 years. So I always had cash in my pocket. None of my friends ever had cash, but I always worked through, so I could take my spoils and go, I'm going to go see The Little Shop of Horrors. I treated some Friday nights like I was going to the red carpet premiere of whatever the film was.
See, I have always had a job since I was about 13, but I worked for the family business, which was usually in warehouses and sanding drywall on stuff, and there was no reciprocation.
I worked at the family business too, but I had a big
but you had paying customers.
I had a big wad of ones because I was charming as a wait person and got 20% usually. So
that wouldn't have been my end.
I'd be walking down the main street just throwing one. Here you go, everybody. Come on, it's on me. Let's go to Little Shop of Horrors. And just, pop.
Why didn't we know each other? Oh, it's because you probably would have taken me to Dune.
I would have had you get me cigarettes. If you had that job, I would have been like, listen, come to I'll pay for your ticket. Get me a carton of Pall Malls, will you?
I live in Canada. I'd have to get you Du Maurier.
Give me a carton of Du Maurier, please.
Hey, Ed, did you know that Bill Murray is going to be in a Marvel movie?
I heard this, and then I never sort of got confirmation on it. Is it an Ant-Man thing or something?
Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania. I wonder what that's about.
You know what? He should get everything. Everything. He is. You have to admit that every time. I mean, he has gone left or right each time. It's gone the other way. He has had a very strange career, and he is a one-off.
Yeah.
That he can, and I genuinely think where this is concerned, and the other thing about Murray too is you can't. It's hard to find, fluffy bullshit interviews with him anywhere in all these years.
No, he's himself, and you hear all kinds of crazy stories about him. And
I genuinely think he did this because he wanted to do it. It's a certain amount of now I'm sure there'll be another one, and what that means for any of them, I don't know. But I think he did it because of the Reitmans, and there's something touching about that. When you go back that far with Ivan Reitman and Aykroyd, I mean, it's crazy to think these guys, and really in all the years they've known each other, how many times have Murray and Aykroyd been on screen together? You had the show and then 3 movies, and that's it. And now one of them's gone, and we didn't even get that to see them, again. So it's like, it's historic, and it doesn't. You can like it, you can not like it, you can be for it or against it, but it would be pretty churlish to just go, I don't feel anything, to see those two together doing it. I mean, I'd love to see them in Coffee and Cigarettes, sitting down on a black and white 12-minute film talking about coffee. I'd be happy to see that. See, I like that stuff where, whatever it is, if you get this iconic person or this thing that I love and they're in this thing, I appreciate that it's there. I can easily say it's not good or it's, garbage or terrific, but I love that it exists because you get so little of that. Those, like Nicholson and De Niro, 2 of the most iconic actors of the 70s. They actually were in a film together.
Yeah.
The Last Tycoon. They were in a film, and I didn't find out until high school because I'd never heard of this thing. You had to track down a copy. And it's a forgettable film. It's not a good film. It's Ilya Kazan, who was a rat. No, sorry. Sorry, I got carried away. I remember when I got blacklisted.
Yeah.
Ilya Kazan.
That's so weird. You just brought him up because I was just watching Horror Express, and that got brought up in the commentary.
Oh, the Blacklist?
Yeah.
How was it? Because I've got that. I didn't listen to the commentary, but what's
yeah. You know what's funny is I was listening to the commentary, and you don't see the dudes in the film, but you can, you know exactly who they are from any documentary you've ever watched.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like I can picture them, but they're interesting. And, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm trying to back this up, Telly Savalas' character in Horror Express is named Kazan.
Oh!
And because it was a, good Lord, this is weird. I should go out and buy a lottery ticket. Yeah, Captain Kazan. It's because the writer of Horror Express was blacklisted because of Kazan.
Oh.
And they brought it up, and it's so weird that just before we recorded, I listened to that, and I got that reference. I don't know what that means, Jason. I should have bought a lottery ticket or something tonight. But
we have that weird chemistry, though.
We do, but that was so serendipitous, and I know that one guy is going to be mad because we're not talking about Bill Murray constantly, but that was effed up, dude.
I'm going to piss him off, that guy, for the next however long we do this.
Yeah, I think we should just be reading the paper for the next episode we do. It's just card table for sale in my neighborhood.
But it's one of those things that I really dig, that, you know, it's like the thing we've brought this up several times, that like this is maybe 6 months ago, whatever it was that I saw, I can't believe I've lived this long and not known that The Who performed Tommy on stage in London and John Pertwee showed up. You know, on stage dressed.
Well, because that just happened, though. Because
I know. I texted you right away, and I said, "How is this just?" So those universes of things that I love colliding or being on screen together or in the same thing or whatever. I love that thing. I think two of the worst things to happen to and again, you know me well enough to know I don't hold all this stuff precious. We love Planet of the Apes, okay? But you have to admit the first film is where it's at. You know, the other movies are great, but the first film is what, if you were going to turn anybody on, you'd say that's the one.
Oh yeah, that's the most solid foundation of the series. That is an excellent film. But the rest are fun.
Yes,
but
and
silly.
They're not in the same zip code as that first film. They're good and we love them and they're great. But that first one is whatever. So we're not so married to this stuff that everything is,
gosh, no. Yeah.
You know, so precious, you know, so these little weird, you know, moments that happen, I think I think the two, like I said, the two worst things I think that have happened are the term deconstructing and the term fan service. I think it's such fucking wanking. I don't get how these things became so prevalent in every commentary, in every conversation, because fan service can mean anything. What does that mean? Does that mean my name is Bond, James Bond? Is that, you can't do that. That's fan service. You're giving them what they want. You know, would you want them to retire and go live on a farm? What do you want? Maybe this isn't the franchise for you. Maybe Bond isn't your thing if that's what you know. They've done a lot of damage, I think, where people can't just, and your analogy is perfect too, about the embarrassment of riches, where everything is, it's the action figure thing. It's something comes out, an image comes out for a product that's not going to hit for 8 or 9 months. And by the third comment, it's, well, I hope they're going to get to so-and-so. I'd like to build an army of, you know, Hydra people or whatever. You go, this one hasn't even come out yet. This constant, what's the next one will be better. The next one, they should have done this. It should be better. It's led to millions of people that can't just sit back and go, I'm just going to enjoy this. I'm just going to see what this thing does and how it is. And, you know, who knows? Maybe when I see the Eternals in a year from now or 6 months on Disney Plus or whatever, I might go, yeah, I loved it. It was great. It was not what I thought.
Yeah, my son loved it, and it wasn't enough to drag me to a theater. I don't know what could drag me to a theater right now, but
yeah, and you know how you always are good at sort of we both do this, but I think you in different ways about pinpointing moments and maybe why it affected you a certain way. You were dating that person, or you were working at that. This was my third movie. I've only seen 3 movies in 2 years.
Right.
I saw Bond, and I saw Ghostbusters, and I saw Last Night in Soho. Are the 3 that I've seen. So there's a bit of there's a tiny 10% more of a buzz to just go, I'm in a theater. It's not the same. It never will be. I hate to say it. It's just, it doesn't feel like, and my beloved ArcLight is closed. So I went to a place, the Grove in LA. I mean, it was the Americana, which is the same thing as the Grove, same kind of owners, AMC. I was used to going to the ArcLight where it's like, it's kind of posh and, you can't find a Snickers, but you can get a Toblerone. It's that kind of place. But they didn't have anything. They had popcorn and they had cups for soda. They didn't have any other, and some candy. But nothing else up on the menu existed. They didn't have it. And you could get the, assigned seat or whatever, but it was just all very weird experiences. So it's a wonder that I came away with good feelings altogether. But I enjoyed it. I really, it sort of hit me. And, I think you should see it. I think it'd be good for you eventually, whenever you see it.
Yeah, I won't go. I'll probably check it out. I mean, I live with the child of the 80s, and she'll eventually want to watch it. But
I think you'd dig it because it doesn't hold this stuff. It's more of a vibe of a certain type of film that doesn't really come. I keep thinking of Arachnophobia. I don't know why, but that's the best example I can think. Because someone tried to say it's kind of a Goonies thing. It's like,
I hate the Goonies.
Yeah, believe me, if I thought it was Goonies, I wouldn't be digging on it. But
no, but like I got lambasted on Twitter over saying the Ice Pirates sucked. But
how dare you,
sir?
That and Magnum Force were Robert Urich's best theatrical films. And they're 2 of the 3 that I think he made theatrically. Yeah, I
was going to say,
He made Endangered Species, which is an underrated little thriller with Joe Beth Williams. But boy, TV loved Robert Urich. He was the king of television.
How did we get to Robert Urich?
I don't know, but
how do we get back?
Name me a show that hits Ilya Kazan, the Blacklist, Robert Urich, Where the Buffalo Roam, buying me cigarettes in high school. Who's got this kind of breadth in their podcast? No one is the answer.
No.
Nobody does. That's why we're up for a Peabody, I think, this year.
Or a Mark Twain Award.
A Mark Twain Award.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
If you win, hey, fine. I'll do the speech. If I win, I hope that you'd come to the ceremony and send me off.
I will come to the ceremony, sir, and I will do a one-man Mark Twain show. But please be warned, I know precious little about Mark Twain.
Well, there's time.
No, there isn't.
There's time.
I will make it my business to know precious. I'll actually hit myself in the head to unlearn things about Mark Twain.
Speaking of which, and this is a weird thing to, did you see the Kilmer documentary, the Val Kilmer documentary?
A bit of it, and it made me sad.
Yeah, man.
And then I had to go to bed, so I didn't finish it. But
man, that is God bless him, but that is a tough.
Yeah, no, that made me feel. Yeah, I don't like that. So
well, what a great way to wrap it up. This episode. Once again, bringing joy into your lives. The latest
Well,
episode.
yeah, you know what? This is a 2-hour episode, and we've already been on the phone for an hour, so yeah,
Well,
I think it's time.
You know, we missed November. And listen, I
was Miss November.
I used to date Miss November, and let me tell you,
me too.
It ain't like missing November.
She told me all about you.
We feel bad about that. So there you go. You got an extra half hour, 40 minutes of bullshit from us, and hopefully that'll tide you over until.
Enjoy that filler and nonsense, everybody. We'll be back this month to do something else, and we're going to have guests. Jason has been our booker, and he's doing some interesting things.
I'm trying to get Bill Murray, but he's got an answering service.
He has an answering service, and he just said no. Yes, but
for part 2 of our Bill Murray dissertation.
Yeah, well, what he did say was, "I wish you guys would get right to the topic and not discuss HBO movies."
By the way, I have his book. He wrote a book about golf called Cinderella Story. This was a cash grab. It's called Cinderella Story. And he did an appearance in New York where he did a signing. And I was there the day after, like, you walk into Barnes & Noble and it's like, what? He was what? And
yeah.
They had 2 copies behind the counter, and I bought one. So I've got a signed copy of Cinderella Story.
Oh, you know what? I want to bring up one story.
Yep. And
this is how we'll end out. My friend Rob Kelly of the Fire and Water podcast.
Hey, Rob.
I've been a guest on his show a billion times. He's a great guy. Oh, yeah.
Oh, what am I, neighbor's kid?
You are. These are my friends. And I just was on the Superman 3 movie minute with them, and we did the robot lady scene in that movie that scarred me and made me wet my pants. Anyways, he drew an illustration of Bill Murray, I believe, for a magazine or whatever. And that became that effing thing you see on the Chive. Like, they just stole his drawing. And, like, I can be driving and see that Bill Murray on a bumper sticker or on someone's car.
Oh.
He has received dime none from that.
Boy, that's a sadder ending than the Kilmer.
Yeah, well, it seems perfect. And, so has Bill Murray, by the way.
What's the, but forgive me, because I don't know if I know that, like you're telling me there's an image that kind of like the Andre the Giant, the Obey thing that was.
Yeah. It's drawn by Rob Kelly.
And what's the image of Murray? Like what, a young Murray, a today Murray?
No, a slightly older Murray. I think Rob drew it for a magazine illustration.
And what does it say? What did, like, the bumper stickers say?
They don't say anything. It's just an image that I think of the website, the Chive, which I've never been to, was marketing, and it got everywhere. It went viral. But the artist of that image is Rob Kelly, and he didn't really ever get a dime out of that. And
wow,
it's like it's almost like it's almost like knowing the guy who drew Calvin peeing.
Calvin, did you say Calvin peeing? Is that what you said?
Yes. Yeah, Calvin peeing on your favorite thing.
Yeah.
But if you Google Chive Bill Murray, you'll see the image a million times.
Huh.
And that is a Rob Kelly illustration.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I designed the Nike swoosh. I've gotten nothing for it. I got $200 for that.
You designed the Nike swoosh a year before you were born?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I drew it in the womb.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have not lived up to the expectations of your birth. Because
and listen, and I don't need
if
you.
If a baby popped out with a trend-setting logo, you've peaked.
Listen, I don't need you to tell me I haven't lived up to my birth. Okay? Yeah. Thank you. You're the wind beneath my wings. Okay?
I showed up with an overdue phone bill. And things have just gotten better from there.
Well, there you go.
Hi, Mom, you need to pay this.
You were sneaking out at night making long-distance calls, trying to buy
That's
toys.
right.
My
toys that hadn't been made yet.
Hadn't been made yet. That's going to be worth something someday.
Yeah, I was calling Marty Abrams.
I gotta get that. By the way, did you see what I wrote about the It's a Small World catalog that you posted? I saw that.
Yes, absolutely.
Man, talk about.
Yeah, that was the internet, man. And did you see what happened with that? And for everyone that doesn't know, I posted on my Instagram the It's a Small World catalog, and then I joked with somebody because Israel Levick, who owns Toy Tokyo and It's a Small World, I've known him for 40 years, 30 years, and I've had dinner with him. I've shipped stuff to his house. And he's always called me Brad.
Oh, yeah.
And this guy, Paul Chu, that I know, happened to read that and was like standing next to Israel at the time, or Lev as they call it. And he sends me this video of Lev going, "Hi, Brad."
That's funny.
And it's just like, okay, that's hilarious. Yeah. How did we get here?
Because I mentioned that you posted it, and I thought you could, for the longest time, I didn't think you could find it, but then apparently I had it. I have it somewhere, but that just was such sense memory of...
Oh my God, yeah, and I've got tons of those. I still have all those old catalogs. Oh, I gotta start posting those up. I've got Just Kids Nostalgia, and Cyclops and Company, all these, 90s.
You got it, but you got to say, and you're much more of a toy person than I am. Let's be honest. Even though I'm probably more plastic. No, but you got to admit that catalog is a secret handshake. Like if you know that catalog, you know that is the day the clown cried of toy catalogs. Because
except that not everybody, good.
Not everybody knows, but not everyone knows about it. Few people have actually seen it or held it. How many of those copies, went in the garbage, 30 years ago? Like there can't be a ton floating around. But
it made a scene.
Everybody can collectively to this day even go best catalog ever printed. Best collection.
Yeah, that's never, and what's funny is that's never going to get taken away.
Nope.
Because it's not like somebody's going to try to top it.
No, but I'm saying, in that realm of those, well, then the internet happened, so it doesn't really matter. But like
that's exactly what I was going.
In the realm of those things, like it was just even the best thing. Even where you get those black and white things, sometimes it'd be on newspaper, and sometimes it would be on glossy paper, and like, oh, that looks. But then this thing shows up. I mean, Andy Foley used to do color copies.
Oh yeah, Andy Foley was. I think I'm still Facebook friends with.
This thing shows up and it's like, it's like the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Shroud of Turin shows up on your doorstep. It was still a big deal. Anyway, I wish you'd quit changing just wrap it up about Bill Murray so we can get out of here.
I have to go take the dog for a pee. So on that note, good night, everybody, or good morning. I don't care.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back very soon. Brian promises.
I promise.